Well, back to our top story now. A new turn in the most urgent debate in Washington, the rush to raise the U.S. debt limit. President Obama and the GOP brushing off face-to-face talks and making their appeals directly to the American people. But can either party win over the public? That is increasingly sick and tired of the Washington blame game, so to speak. Jehmu Greene is former president of the Women's Media Center and a Fox News contributor. Deneen Borelli is a Project 21 fellow, Daily Caller columnist, and a Fox News contributor as well. Mercedes Colwin is a Fox News legal analyst. Thank you so much for joining us again for our power panel. So let's talk about this debt debate. You know, both sides going back and forth, kind of become like, you know, throwing sand in the sandbox at this point. And who do you think Americans are ultimately going to blame for this? I'll start with you.
Well, I think there's a lot of blame to go around. And looking at this past week, it was like the meeting, to talk about the meeting, to plan the meeting. And I think there's a lot of frustration. Stop doing the politics of it all and actually just start making decisions. Hopefully we will get to that point whenever this next meeting takes place. But really, there has to be some willingness amongst all parties, and I don't think the Republicans have come to the table willing to compromise, willing to say, we will put this on the table, since Democrats are putting, you know, they're putting some choices on the table with cuts and entitlements, but they're not willing to compromise.
The Republicans have the opposite story, though. They say they have been willing to compromise.
President Obama is the president, and what the American people want to see is true leadership, and we have not seen that. He could have passed something last year when he had full control of the House and the Senate. He had all his party on board, and that was not a priority. Nothing was passed. So here we are, and this is a political play, and we shouldn't even be going through this. This is ridiculous.
Because the priority at the time was revamping health care.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
That wasn't the budget.
And you're exactly right, Deneen, because the public looks at this and says, you're the CEO. I mean, the U.S. is this huge conglomerate. Look at it as a head of a corporation. And when there are problems within a corporation, certainly individuals that are in the workforce understand you need to resolve this issue. You need to resolve this problem. We need to have this done immediately because the fallout is so significant. They're not going to turn around and say it's all of the other individuals that are involved. They're going to look at the very head of this country and they're going to say, President Obama, you have to do better for all of us.
Except Republicans are saying, we're going to take our marbles and go home. Like, they're saying we don't even want to play. Like, they just are not willing to compromise.
But Democrats have done that as well. In fact, President Obama did that by walking out. And, you know, there may be some discrepancy in the language of it, whether he stormed out or whether he walked out, whether he, you know, gracefully exited. I don't know. But ultimately, he walked out as well. So they're both doing that.
We've had a lot of folks walk out of meetings, whether it's Eric Cantor and you know, the up in arms type of response we've seen from many of the new Tea Party members in the House. But I just think that there has to be some give and take.
Well,
and we have Republicans saying we are not willing to compromise.
Thank goodness
That's
for the Tea Party, because if it wasn't for the Tea Party, we wouldn't be having this debate. The Tea Party is holding the politicians accountable. They're holding their feet to the fire because we want reduced spending and we want true leadership. And we're not seeing that right now from the president.
Okay, well, here's some leadership that is in question. Our next topic. In Texas, Governor Rick Perry is facing a federal lawsuit over his plans to hold a day of prayer. So here's the question. Is it okay for a governor to sponsor an event like this? What do you think?
Personally, I pray every day, but I don't want to impose that on someone else. And there's so many different religions. There's so many different individuals that pray in different ways. Some individuals don't believe there's a higher power, so they don't pray at all. I think there is a huge separation of church and state. I think that politicians should stay out of that. You can encourage it, certainly. You can lead a very Christian life, if that's or prayerful life, however you want to choose it, but to impose it on other folks, I think that the lawsuit actually has some legs.
But is he imposing it? I mean, he's not requiring that people go to this.
This is a free will, and I don't see how this is an issue as far as Governor Perry is concerned. Anyone can attend, but what you got to keep in mind is the atheists are the ones who have a problem with this. They have a problem with Christmas. They have a problem with anything that's associated with Christianity. So that's what we're witnessing.
I think, though, the issue with the lawsuit is more about he, you know, used the state seal and the proclamation that was done, that potentially he's crossed the line of the separation between church and state, which is such an important part of the foundation of our country. I actually think he shouldn't, he should go ahead and do this. But it really is a bigger issue about who he's standing shoulder to shoulder with. Some of the folks that are a part of the leadership of this rally have said some extremely intolerant, homophobic, just really egregious things that for me, growing up as a Presbyterian, that's not what being a Christian was about. So I think he has to look at who he's standing shoulder to shoulder with.
You can't always control who you stand shoulder to shoulder with.
Oh, he
and
can.
Well, again, though, I would reference President Obama and some questions about some of the people that he stood shoulder to shoulder with.
But
in the
here's
past,
the other thing.
right?
What about the Easter egg hunt at the White House? What about the
True.
Easter prayer breakfast that they do? I mean, how come there are no issues there?
But okay, come on. Some of the folks
That's
who are
because
putting
folks
this rally
didn't
together have
galvanize.
called Oprah the devil.
I
know,
Seriously,
right.
come on.
That's
That's
they didn't
his
gather.
judgment
I
call.
But
agree.
frankly,
That's
when
his
there is a
judgment call.
voice, there's a voice. There are individuals that are welling up and saying, "We find this offensive. We ourselves don't follow that type
Then
of
don't
lifestyle."
go.
Then don't. But
Absolutely.
frankly, that's why they want to say, "Don't use the seal. Don't use your power."
At the
to do
same
that.
thing at the
time,
White
in
House.
America, we have a right to be Christians, and we don't have to apologize for it. And I feel so strongly about that. And I feel that people are out there apologizing for being a Christian these days. Don't think that you need to do that. That's just my opinion. But we're going to move on to our next topic before I go off on that. In England, we're going to go to, new government guidance is advising teachers to use physical force to control unruly students. So should U.S. teachers learn a lesson here? They're actually, saying that it's okay to do this sometimes.
There was an article recently where students said we miss that type of discipline. We feel that sometimes corporal punishment is needed in certain circumstances, especially if they're so wayward that they're falling off the treadmill that they should be on in order to be successful. So there are a lot of folks, including students, that do want corporal punishment to be implemented here in the U.S.
It's funny, my husband and I, we were joking how he was disciplined when he was in school by the nuns. But anyway, I think teachers need to step in. You can't just stand there and allow kids to fight. They need to put forth whatever effort they can to keep kids from harming other people. And there are some schools in America where teachers are not supposed to do anything. I've seen the videos where they just stand there and see the students fight, and it's crazy.
And I think, though, as parenting decisions have changed a lot over the last few decades, that teachers should be given a little bit more flexibility, because I think a lot of parents are giving just their children way too much room. They don't, give them boundaries, and then that same lack of boundaries is transferred over into the classroom. So as parents are more lax on their children, then we have to figure out a way for teachers to be more disciplinarian in the classroom, and just that there's a balance. Like if two kids are fighting, throwing a physical temper tantrum, the teacher needs to have the ability to step in.
Yeah, my sister's a teacher. I think she would agree with this. I'll talk to her about it later. So is your